Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Westwood Trust Creative Chat. My name is Claire Williamson, and I am the Director of Education and Community Engagement at Society for the Performing Arts. To describe myself and my surroundings, I'm a white woman with long brown hair and dark-rimmed glasses. I'm wearing a cream-colored top and gold earrings, and there are several framed pictures on the white wall behind me. I am thrilled to chat with another awardee of the Houston Artist Commissioning Project this evening, Tazeen Zahida. As you may know, SPA's Houston Artist Commissioning Project launched this summer as an opportunity to provide economic and creative support to Houston's artist community. The first phase of the project is rolling out this fall, with 6 virtual commission grantees awarded funds to create an original 3 to 5 minute virtual work. If you'd like to learn more about the Houston Artist Commissioning Project, please visit our website. The link is in the screen and in the chat. Before we delve into the conversation, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the many Indigenous communities that have long used and continue to use this land as a living and gathering space. SPA's offices in Jones Hall are located on ancestral land traversed by the Karankawa, Atakapa Ishak, Sana, and Kwalwitakan people. The Alabama Coushatta people migrated to the Houston area over 3 centuries ago, and they have played a large role in shaping the culture and economy of our region. As I mentioned last week, our organization is still in the first stages of this journey towards truth and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, both past and present. We acknowledge these communities to offer recognition and respect for their lived experience and to broaden awareness of the forces that have led to this moment. There are so many resources to explore our own relationship to native land, and I shared one resource during our last chat. This week, I would like to draw your attention to the Indigenous Cultures Institute. This is an organization that works to preserve and honor the land and culture of the Indigenous peoples in Texas and northern Mexico that are collectively known as the Kwalwitakans. For more information and to check out their online events, please visit their website at indigenouscultures.org. We'll also include the link in the chat. It is now my pleasure to introduce Tazeen Zahida, one of SPA's Houston Artist Commissioning Project virtual grantees. Born in Karachi and raised in Saudi Arabia, poetry and literature have played a major role in Tazeen's upbringing. She grew up immersed in the writings of Ghalib, Iqbal, Faiz, Shakespeare, Shaw, Wilde, and Poe. She eventually found her voice in playwriting, and as an unapologetic bilingual, she writes plays and articles in both English and Urdu. Tazeen's work is inspired by current affairs, social issues, family dynamics, and her experiences living in the Middle East and America. Her work aims to represent the unrepresented and tell the untold stories in an authentic and meaningful way. She's been working under the banner of her company, Zee Productions. We'll be sharing her Facebook and YouTube channels at the end of this chat. Some of her recent plays in Houston include A Rearranged Marriage, Blood Test, and Love Conquers All. Currently, she is presenting an online dramedy series, which you can also find on her Facebook and YouTube pages. Tazeen, welcome. Would you like to say some words?
Thank you so much, Claire, for this great introduction. I am so very grateful to SPA and to come by you, basically. I feel right at home with the type of support and the type of relationship I'm building with SPA right now. I'm honored.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tazeen. I'm so happy to have you here this evening. So let's get this conversation started. I have a couple of questions prepared, but if our virtual audience would also like to chime in, please feel free to post a question in the live chat on either our Facebook or YouTube page, and we'll do our best to cover it. So to start off, in your bio, you shared some of the writers who had an impact on you in your development as a playwright. Are there any writers or artists that are providing particular inspiration for you these days?
That's a great question. The thing is, I'm a bit complex when it comes to a reader. First of all, being bilingual means I have a two set of writers, one who write in English and the other who write in Urdu. Though I'm a playwright, I love reading plays, but I love nonfiction. So there you go. There another category. I have fiction writers and I have nonfiction writers that I admire. But there are writers that we have been reading for a while, but there comes a time when you actually come to realize their genius. Such as one of the writers I'm gonna mention right now. You must be knowing Bapsi Sidhwa. Bapsi Sidhwa, who wrote Ice Candy Man and many, many others of her works. And luckily for me, she resides in Sugarland. And I had the good fortune of meeting up with her. And I had a one-on-one chat with her about her technique, about the way she ended most of her works. So Bapsi Sidhwa is definitely one of those people who are continuing to inspire me to write better and more truthful account of human experience, I believe. And I admire Mohsin Hamid's work and Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name rightly, but I really like his work. And Roxane Gay is again one nonfiction. I like her nonfiction work. And when it comes to Urdu, I really admire Mr. Anwar Maqsood and Hasina Moin. You might not be knowing them, but believe me, they are the gods of Urdu drama.
Wow. Wow, that's a real
Yes.
range. It's fantastic that you definitely must be doing a lot of reading during quarantine, during this time.
Yes, I am, in fact.
Wonderful. Yeah, and it's so fantastic too, isn't it, to have these people that inspire you and then be able to meet with them in person. That's a wonderful
It's
opportunity.
it's an unbelievable experience to actually sit and chat with these people. I got to meet with Mr. Anwar Maqsood because before coming to US, I was living in Saudi, and very, very rarely creative people, went that way. And since I have come to Houston, I have really been able to see all those people I've been wanting to see for the longest time. And Anwar Maqsood and Bapsi Sidhwa are one of those people.
That's
Two of those
wonderful.
people.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you are a relatively recent transplant to Houston, correct? Is that 2 years that you've been here?
It's going to be almost 4 years.
Almost 4. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right.
But so I'd love to hear more about what your experience has been like as a creative person here in Houston with the artistic community and finding a place for your work. What has that experience been like for you?
It has been great. In one single word, it has been a great experience coming to Houston. And the best part was coming to see so many creative and intellectuals that I have not been able to come across up till now in my life. And there are so many people from Pakistan, and in particular from Karachi, from where I hail,
Mhm.
who have made this place their home. So the age group ranges from, I think, from 30s to late 80s. And there
Wow.
are people who are, I think they have a treasure of experiences and knowledge that they can share, and I'm honored to be around them. And in terms of people, in terms of friends, this is a great place. And then again, in terms of talent, Houston is brimming with talent. There are so many passionate people, so many talented actors here. I don't have words to describe how lucky I feel when I just tap into these, uh, contacts, and I just tell them, okay, I'm doing this show, and they're all there. They have the will, they find the time and the leisure to come and work with me, and it's a great feeling.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, you have definitely identified amazing collaborators for your video, your web series, and
Yes.
for the project with us. the actors that you work with, and I know your technical team as well are all really amazing.
Yes.
Wonderful work. Yeah, great. I'm glad to hear that it's been a positive experience.
It has. It has been a very positive experience, and I'm hoping to make more theater, and I'm hoping to better myself at this what I'm doing, and definitely one day I'm sure I will get the attention of the mainstream theater makers, and I will get a chance to exhibit my work in those places, basically.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to go back to talking about creative inspiration. We've talked about some of the artists that you admire, some of the writers, but I would love to talk specifically about your Houston Artist Commissioning Project premiere. Of course, we don't want to give anything away, but I'd love to hear about how you developed that piece. Where did the inspiration come from?
Okay, first of all, this was like and you can say an answer to my prayers, that I got this opportunity to write. And I'm always a bleeding heart, always waiting for someone to tell me what do you want, and there I am. So when I was given this opportunity that I have to write something or present something within 5 minutes span maximum, and of course if it has to be theatrically presented, it will have a beginning and a mid part and an ending.
Right.
So it had to make sense in that way, that the story has to be complete. I could only think of one thing, since in my student life I have been a great admirer of monologues and soliloquies and declamations and this type of stuff. I have done a lot in my student times. So I know this is a very powerful tool to engage an audience. And this is what I went on doing. I decided that for 5 minutes long, I'm going to write a monologue. Now that was decided. But then came what is it going to be about? So in those days, if you remember, dreamers were a thing, and people were talking about this, and ultimately there was a law passed for dreamers,
Right.
and I really felt for these kids.
Yeah.
And because it's a human situation, basically, that I really felt for, and I thought that there can be something said about it. And then of course we were living in the times of a pandemic, and I think for any smart writer, it is not right to ignore the times that they're living through. You cannot stay oblivious to what's going around you. So it had to do something with pandemic. I wanted it about dreamer, and it had to be 5 minutes, and it had to be a monologue. So this is how it came about.
Well, I think it's really interesting when you're talking about how you sort of developed this idea that you sort of set for yourself these parameters. We didn't tell you that it had, we set the time limit, but pretty much everything else you sort of determine for yourself in terms of like what restrictions you were going to place. But it is helpful sometimes to do that, isn't it? You take away some of that choice, and then you're left with a really great sort of foundation for creativity.
Yes. Initially, you feel that you are limiting yourself, but when you look at the end product, you come to realize that it made you more focused.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it becomes. In fact, I feel I'm coming. Don't think that because I'm coming from Saudi Arabia, but because I know how to survive within limitations.
Right.
So of course everyone needs creative freedom, but there are times when you are given some restraints that you learn to thrive with those things. That's what it's about. And to me, it is always, I feel this is the challenge I'm always willing to take up.
Yeah, learning how to thrive in not even adverse conditions, but just with limitations. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I think that's a mark of a creative person too. People who have creativity in them often have that resilience to persevere and to make something beautiful out of their circumstances.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's beyond those sort of initial stages of setting the parameters for the work. What is your creative process like? Do you set aside time to write regularly, or do you sort of like write in bursts of inspiration?
I think it's a combination of these two things. I would really wish I could give you a very nice answer about a very disciplined writer, but of course there is a method to my madness. But uh, um, basically, I write within. Whenever I write, it's a matter of minutes. I finish my
Wow.
writing. The first part, that is the first part of the writing process. That's when the pen meets the paper. Okay,
Mhm.
but then comes the difficult part when you sit down and you polish and you edit and you rewrite and you rephrase. uh, that takes longer. For me, I remember I don't know, some great writer somewhere I once read said writing is basically rewriting. So I think yes, I think this is what it is about. The first burst of inspiration does make you write, like this thing that we are gonna premiere on 29th. It
Right.
was written like within maybe 11 minutes, but then we
Wow.
just went on and on perfecting it for a month
Mhm.
and a half.
Wow.
every
Yeah.
day i will every day I will just sit with it and I will just look at it as if it is someone else's work, and I'll try my best, and I'll tell I'm fortunate enough to have some great critics in my family and close friends. So who do have a field day when they're asked to to criticize the work. So that works in my favor. I believe this is how we emerge as better writers, that we let anyone, okay, tell me what's wrong with this. This is how I work.
Yeah, absolutely. I love you and I have spoken in the past about how the that process of being able to bring on family members and friends to be part of that process is it's it's helpful, obviously, to have that support, but also it just enriches the experience to have people that are invested in you and what you're doing be a part of that creativity. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have an audience question. This is a great
Oh,
one.
God help me.
No, nothing, no hard balls, but
Okay.
this is a great question. Knowing that this was going to be shared digitally, did social media factor into your work, or did the fact that it was going to be premiered digitally impact your writing or your subject matter?
If anything, I was more mindful of the fact that this piece of writing is going to have a larger audience and more diverse audience than a usual presentation in a theater in an enclosed environment. So this was the thing, that I was more mindful of the fact that it is going to be viewed, it is going to be submitted in very many different arenas than just being a part a part on the stage. That's it.
Absolutely, that's a great point. It is, it's not only like a potentially large audience, but also not the people who may be looking at your work normally, or even the
Yes,
people who may be coming to an SPA performance. It's a really wide. You're casting a really wide net, right?
that's what it is.
With
Exactly.
social media. Absolutely. I want to go back to talking about your writing process, because you talking about how you sort of kind of word vomit your ideas and then you go back day after day after day to edit your work makes me think about something that you and I were talking about earlier, about translation, and how sometimes when you're translating someone else's work, you end up molding it into having to use your own creativity and having to use your own writing skills to create something in the other language that is similarly beautiful. And so I want to talk about what it's like for you as a bilingual writer, because I think that, being able to write in two languages is really an enriching opportunity. But, also, how does that impact your storytelling? Do you write in different subject matters depending on the language? So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, that's a great question, and in particular, I love talking about this because I think I had a head start in life as a creative person because of my father, being a poet and a very creative person himself. He advised me when I was a kid, I think, that never translate your thoughts. Now, looking at this advice, one would say, okay, now what do I do if I don't translate my thoughts? That means I will end up thinking in English for what I'm going to write in English, and I'm going to end up thinking in Urdu what I'm going to write in Urdu. So this is exactly what I did. And honestly, I never pretend to be something that I'm not. I was raised with in a very restrictive environment in Saudi Arabia of 80s. And if anyone has been or known about this part, they would know that no matter how progressive a family you come from, but when you are brought up in generally a country or a society which is repressive, or you feel restrained in many ways,
Right.
it does show in the way you operate as a creative person. So when I write, I am extremely mindful of my religious and my social associations. I cannot disassociate myself from the person I have been for the most part of my life and just write anything and
Right.
everything. So this is one thing. So for that purpose, Urdu is just not the language. Urdu is something somewhat. It is a language of extreme politeness. It is a language that is best to talk about love and stuff like this. But when it comes to talking about really harsh or ugly facts, ugly truths of life, I think we tend to pick English because we find,
Wow.
yeah, we find English to give us a wider canvas in that way. I'm honestly, I may not be politically correct, which I'm most often not, you know. So this is how I operate. I just know if I have to write about a woman being unfaithful, I'm just giving an example. If I
Right.
have to write about a story about a woman being unfaithful, I would know that generally the Urdu speaking audience may not have a stomach for a story that's like this.
Okay.
So this does affect this
Mhm.
sense of as I said, social and religious association, and being mindful of that association does affect my creative process to a great level. Although I would like to come to a level of my craft where I can do anything, become a super writer and do whatever I want to write in whatever language. But of course, it's going to take a while. Since
Oh, of
I'm
course.
just starting out, I'm taking baby steps. I am in no hurry because even when I'm cooking, I never go for shortcuts. That's something that tells you my process.
Right. Yeah.
I believe in the fact that there are no shortcuts in life, and I have to give everything its due time for it to simmer to perfection.
Hmm.
I cannot make it go, okay, now done. I'm not the fast food
Right.
type person.
No cutting corners, no taking
Nothing.
shortcuts. Yeah,
No taking shortcuts.
absolutely. I like what you were saying too about it actually ties back into what we were talking about earlier about limitations. This understanding of a language being sort of limited or restricted in subject matter because of the cultural norms and your own perception of how you use that language. And so being able to write in two different languages opens up more subject matter to you. You know, maybe if
Yes.
you only wrote in Urdu, you wouldn't write about more difficult subjects or vice versa, you know? So that's that's some really great food for thought, just considering um, the potential that being writing in more than one language has for like opening up your perspectives. Oh,
Yes.
this is a great question from the audience. Um, is
I've been paying
English
these people to do this, basically.
is
Just
English
kidding.
the best language for the pandemic?
Huh. Is English the best language for the pandemic? It it cannot be called the best language for pandemic, because pandemic is in itself, it's something that has affected everyone. So if
Mm-hmm.
something has been so universally harmful to anyone and everyone around the globe, we cannot say that English is the best language to talk about pandemic. My Zoom series, the dramedy, they call it, the kids told me
Mm-hmm.
it's called dramedy. So I said, okay. So the dramedy that we produced was in Urdu, basically. But since all the characters are Indigenous, so we sort of used lingo that they use,
Mm-hmm.
basically. So, and it was a great hit because we made a comedy in Urdu, and it really hit home, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, I think that's a great point. That part of it too is that everyone is experiencing the pandemic.
Yes.
So, there's something to be spoken about in every language in
Yes.
under the umbrella of that. Absolutely. I have one last question. This is a little bit of a tie-on from from the question about the writers who've inspired you. But one of the folks watching is also curious about art that inspires you, and maybe specifically art that is uplifting you, or anything that is keeping your spirits up during these times.
I think personally, though I don't have a very trained art, but since I had artists in my family, my younger sister is an artist and a calligraphist. So
Wow.
being with her and looking at her work and her growth as an artist, I have, I don't know if you can see this painting, and this is a copy of a
Oh
very
yeah.
famous thing. Yeah, she has made this. I don't know if I should have done this or not, but I did
Wow.
it nevertheless. So I have just sort of trained myself to absorb the beauty in different genres. I think it's looking at paintings and looking at the calligraphy work. I really really admire, but music is a great part of the times that we are living through, and it is really making us go through this with, I think, much more decency than it would have been.
Oh,
And I love,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love listening to music. My kid is a trained singer, and
Oh.
when I say trained singer, in our family, if someone joined high school, um, क्या है वो? High school, what is that thing she's a part of?
Choir, maybe?
Choir, yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't
Mhm.
remember the word. High school choir. So we call her a trained singer because that's as far it goes for our family. Anyone.
She's taking lessons. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she has opened my eyes to what a great thing it is. And sometimes at night she would just come and she would say, would you like me to sing for you? And it's really the highlight of my
Wonderful.
day, to have someone perform just for me. And
Yes, yeah,
that
private
that
concert.
yes,
Wonderful.
that's the beauty of art.
Yeah,
And
and it
I'm
does keep
blessed.
the soul. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
So
we're about out of time, but I do want to give you an opportunity. I would love to hear, and I'm sure our audience would love to hear as well. What's next? Do you have any big projects in the works? Anything that you want to share with our
yes,
community?
there are two things. One, I think, since you have asked me before as well about the type of people I've come across in Houston, my journey as a theater maker here.
Mhm.
There are two names that I would like to really give a shout out to. One is Mr. Moiz Habib. He owns a restaurant called Chai Shai, and this guy has a heart of gold. And I have to tell you this, that he opened his party hall, which was a big hall, for us 3 times a week, for the last
Wow.
almost 2 years. And he would let us rehearse there because we all needed a place to rehearse, and that too
Mhm.
close to our house. And he was so supportive in this whole thing, as if we were doing him a favor,
Oh, that's
while
wonderful.
honestly he was doing us a favor. And
Yeah.
I owe it to him to mention his name and his generosity. And then there is a famous radio station here, Dabang Radio, and its owner is Mr. Moed Khan. And I am extremely grateful to his generosity for interviewing my entire team number of times and calling them over and treating them like stars.
Yeah.
This is more important. I was interviewed, my team was interviewed across the board so many times, but the way we were treated, so much honor and respect. My actors, my otherwise helpers, everybody for my team, and they were interviewed and more than a few times, and they were treated as celebrities, which of course they were not till then, but alhamdulillah, these people have really supported me through. As
Absolutely.
in terms of my next project, I am currently writing 2 plays in English and 1 in Urdu, and I am just
Wonderful.
hoping. I'm just hoping that I will get a platform as great as SPA to partner with in the future, and to present my work, because being a small, I can call myself a community theater. Being a small community theater, you really need support. You really need the
Absolutely.
support, that someone would say, okay, we are here, tell us, how can we help? So this was such a great thing. Coming across you guys is honestly is, I thank my lucky stars, really.
Well, we
That
feel very lucky to have you on board as well as one of our grantees. Yes,
I am grateful.
absolutely.
I am so very grateful and blessed.
Well, absolutely. I think that's great for folks to know that Tazeen is looking for collaborators on
Yes,
her next project. So please
yes.
reach out. I'm going to pull up just for folks to have, we'll share them in the chat as well, but this is Tazeen's Facebook, and we'll also share the YouTube link in the chat just to make sure to check her work out and follow her on both Facebook and YouTube for updates on everything else. Absolutely. So I think that's about all we have time for this evening, but thank you to everyone for joining us virtually, for engaging with us during this conversation, and a huge thank you to our program sponsor, Westwood Trust.
I'm
Before
grateful
we
to all
sign
of
off,
you, the people at SPA as well, and thank you, Claire. Thank you so
thank you,
much.
Tazeen. Yes, and before we sign off, I would like to encourage everyone to learn more about and support the amazing work that Tazeen has going on beyond her work with SPA. So, like I said, please visit her Facebook page and YouTube channel. And thank you again, Tazeen, for sharing your time with me this evening and for allowing our audience to get to know you better.
Thank you
Really
so much.
appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Society for the Performing Arts is a nonprofit organization. So if you enjoyed this conversation, please do consider learning more about what we do at SPA and supporting our work and the work of our amazing Houston Artist Commissioning Project artists. Our website will also be linked in the chat, and I'll pop it up here on our screen. And last but not least, make sure to save the date and time for Tazeen's premiere, which you can find on Facebook, on YouTube, and on our website, which will be this coming Thursday, October 29th at 7 p.m. Put that up on the screen too.
Yes,
And
it
we'll
is.
see you then. Thanks,
Great.
everyone.
Thank you.